All right, so today we are going to be talking about charcoal. So the first thing I want to note is that your actual charcoal project you're going to do on this big paper, it is twice the size of your normal paper. I just want you to keep that in mind so you don't start actually doing your charcoal project on small paper. But the practice we're going to do, I just want you to do this on a page in your sketchbook. I'm just going to use this sheet of paper here. It's the same size as your sketchbook paper. So you'll need a couple of things. You need your little sticks of charcoal that I gave you. You need just a regular eraser. You need a kneaded eraser that I gave to you. I've already opened this one because they do take a minute to open. And then you might want a pencil with an eraser like this. So charcoal works pretty similar to graphite, which is pencils, in that you start with a white surface and you build up darks in layers, and you could do some blending and stuff like that. Your charcoal is made of just wood. You can even see like some like the knots and stuff that were in the wood. I would probably go ahead and break it because it's going to break regardless, and this way you break it into like a manageable size instead of like a teeny tiny little size. So charcoal, whereas graphite you start with the white paper, like I said, you start with white paper here, but basically what you want to immediately do with charcoal is tone your paper. You want to give yourself a medium gray paper. So you started with white paper and you're going to move it to medium gray. So you do that by kind of going like this. So you grab your charcoal, you lay it on its side, otherwise it'll take forever, and you just go like this. If it squeaks, stop. Stop working, pick up your charcoal, rotate it a little bit, and start over. Please do not just keep squeaking. You will annoy everyone around you, including me. So you want something about like this, where you've just kind of got charcoal all over the paper. This is going to get all over your hands. There's no really way around that. If you would like to bring your own like gloves or something, I suppose you can. But that's really not going to help much either, because then you're not going to be able to blend very well. So now you need to blend this out so that you give yourself a nice, smooth gray. You can use a paper towel to do this. I wouldn't highly recommend it. I don't think it blends as well as just using your hands. But if you're very finicky about getting stuff on your hands, you can try a paper towel. So basically you're just going to kind of go like this. So now I'm kind of going a different way from the first way that I went with the charcoal. You will sometimes get some of these little specks where it gets like those little dots on there. That's usually caused because there's something underneath your paper. So you might check, see if there's anything underneath your or underneath your paper on the table that's causing that. It's not a huge deal, but you can check. Now I'm going to kind of go in circles. So the first two times I kind of went in lines. Now I'm going to kind of go in circles. You want to get this smooth, but you want to be careful that you're not going too dark. Don't put on so many layers that you end up with something really dark. What you're looking here is just like a medium gray. Not a dark gray, not a light gray, just a medium gray. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. I've got a medium gray. It could be a little bit smoother. For your real one, you might try to make it a little bit smoother. For this one that's just your practice in your sketchbook, this is perfectly good. So what I want you to do on the practice in your sketchbook, I want you to tone your paper. That's where you gray it out. And then I want you to kind of experiment with some stuff. So by the end of it, I want you to have a sphere and a value scale. So that's the same thing you did with the pen and ink. So I'm going to start here with my sphere. And I'm just going to sketch in a circle. The great thing about charcoal is that if you don't like the way it looks, you just go like that and start over. But you can kind of still see the little ghost of your first drawing underneath to kind of help you make it a little bit better the second time. So there's my circle to shade into a sphere. And then up here is going to be my value scale. Something about like that. Now, for this one, like I said, you've got your kneaded eraser and you have a regular eraser. You might also have a pencil eraser. Charcoal is very erasable. So down here for your lightest value, I'm gonna stick with my kneaded eraser for now. I tend to prefer a kneaded eraser for charcoal. If you like this one better, you can use it, but I like this one. So I'm going to go down here and I'm basically going to remove this, and this is how I get my lights with charcoal. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm not going to remove quite as much. A really good way to do this is kind of tap. So this is just like a little bit sticky, and it kind of picks up the charcoal just a little bit. I feel like maybe I went a little bit too light, so my fingers are dirty, so I can kind of go back and blend it a little bit to get it a little bit darker again. Then here, this one I'm going to leave exactly like it is, because that's kind of my medium value. Here I'm going to darken a little bit. Here I'm going to darken a little bit more. And this is going to be my darkest value. I'm going to go ahead and kind of blend those. You notice as you blend, they tend to get a little bit lighter. Charcoal is definitely a medium best used in layers. Each layer builds on the layer before it. Charcoal is also great if you are not very neat, because it blends beautifully. You know, graphite really doesn't. If you shade sloppily with graphite, even if you blend, it's still going to be pretty sloppy. Charcoal, you can get away with pretty sloppy shading because it blends so well. Okay, so there's my value scale. If I wanted to, I could probably lighten this one even a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. So this was my original, just like background color. Then we've got these two that are lighter, these three that are darker. So now I'm going to shade my sphere down here. Again, remember what we did with the pen and ink. You've got a light source coming in from here. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little light source right there. Got a light source coming in from here, shining this way, so I've got my cast shadow. Several of you forgot this on your pen and ink. Don't forget to put your cast shadow. That's part of what makes it look 3D. So this is going to be our darkest area underneath the ball, and then over here to the side that's farthest away, that I'm going to lighten up a little bit as I go. You can kind of treat charcoal like a mix between pen and ink and graphite. That's why I like to do it last for this unit, because you almost kind of shade like hatching a little bit, like you leave some of the paper showing through, so that when you go back and blend, there's less of the added charcoal in that area, and so you end up with a lighter value. Remember that it lightens as you blend, and you will have to go back and do multiple layers. That's how charcoal works. It is meant to be done in layers. You can't do one layer on something and call it finished. And then these last little areas that I want to remain really, really dark, I probably will not go back and blend because I want them to stay really nice and dark. So I'm going to put them in pretty smoothly so that I don't have to go back and blend. I'm going to blend out that just a little bit. And then to make my little highlight here, I'm going to get my kneaded eraser. The great thing about a kneaded eraser is that you can change the shape of it. So you can get it into like a really fine point, and you can actually like draw with it if you want to. But I'm going to do something like this. So that way I've kind of got my lightest area here, fading in. I feel like this area right here needs to be just a little bit darker. One thing that I will say about charcoal that you have to be careful of is that it's really easy to do really good work and completely destroy it. Whereas the pen and ink was incredibly permanent. And even graphite, once you have something in, it's not like you were going to accidentally destroy it. You might on purpose erase it, or you might like mess up and like accidentally draw over it, but you weren't going to just accidentally erase it. With charcoal, you can definitely accidentally erase it. Or just like, and just smudge it right away. Okay, so I'm just kind of lightening the background just a little bit so that the sphere pops out a little bit more. And so I can clean up those edges just a little bit. Okay, so there's my sphere. Here is my value scale. This is what I want you to do in your sketchbook. And then what I would recommend to you is to get a piece of just like scrap notebook paper or an old handout that you don't need anymore or something like that, and put it over top of this page in your sketchbook with a little bit of tape so that you don't accidentally smudge this everywhere, because you totally will. It'll get on everything in your sketchbook. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I've got a random piece of notebook paper that I don't really need anymore, and I'm just going to kind of cover this up. It's not going to cover all of it because this is smaller than your paper, but I can just kind of go like this. Tape it down like that, so that way, even though the edges may smudge a little bit, it's not going to smudge the majority of your work and like destroy it. So something like that will kind of protect you a little bit. The last thing I want to show you is cleanup, because when you're done, your desk is going to look like this. Don't clean it up with a paper towel. It's not going to do you any good. It's just going to smear it around. You need a rag. They are located at the front of the classroom under the bulletin board, and just get a little bit of water on it from the sink. You don't have to have any special chemicals or anything like that. And then you can just simply wipe it up like that, and then throw your rag in the dirty laundry basket. I would recommend having one person do this at your table every day and swapping. So like take turns whose turn it is to clean up the entire table. So that way not everybody has to do it every day. Okay, for real last thing this time. If you drop your charcoal on the floor and you step on it, it's gonna look like this. Which is just really less than ideal. Because now it's just crushed into a fine powder, and I'm gonna have to clean that up, and you're gonna have to clean it up if you drop it. So please don't drop your charcoal, and if you do, please pick it up immediately instead of telling yourself you're going to remember to pick it up later and then stepping on it afterwards.